Good afternoon, everybody. You're most welcome joining us here this afternoon. And of course, a very particular welcome to Kata Tüttő, who is the president of the European Committee of the Regions. And we're welcoming her address today. What role for the regions in the EU's growth model, which is, of course, extremely important to us all. President Tüttő will speak to us for about 20 minutes or so on the role of the regions in the EU's growth model. And afterwards, we will go to the question and answer with the audience. And you'll be able to join the discussion using the Q&A function on Zoom, which you will see on your screen. And please feel free to send in your questions throughout the session as they occur to you, and we will come to them once the President has finished her presentation. This is part, I should mention, of the Future Proofing Europe series, which is kindly supported by the Department of Foreign Affairs. The Committee of the Regions, as you know, is the really important European link between the European institutions and the people in the regions, in the cities, in the country and the towns of the European Union, and in that sense has the role of making the connection between ordinary people and the people leading the EU institutions. And the Irish members number 9, and there are 9 Irish alternates, and they are the connection with from the Irish point of view. A reminder that today's Q&A and the presentation are on the record. And please also feel free to join the discussion on Twitter using the handle @IIEA. And we're also live streaming this afternoon's discussion. So very well welcome to all of you tuning in via YouTube. So now let me formally introduce President Tüttő and hand over to her. Kata Tüttő is a Hungarian politician, economist, and public servant with over 2 decades of experience in local government, also in European policymaking and urban sustainability. As of February 2025, she serves as president of the Committee of the Regions, which represents, as mentioned, local and regional governments from across Europe. At the same time, she remains a member of the Budapest City Council. And previously, Ms. Tüttő served as the Deputy Mayor of Budapest from 2019 to 2024, overseeing climate adaptation, in which I think you're particularly interested, Madam President, overseeing waste and water management, public transport and utility services. And she played a crucial role in making Budapest more sustainable and resilient, advocating for green investments and inclusive urban development. That was an extremely practical history of achievements, which I think is a very welcome background to your talk today. So the floor is yours, Madam President, and we welcome. Yes, please, if you wish. We could take the questions sitting down, but I think it's useful.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the invitation. And please tell me when my time's up. I have this politician sickness that I sometimes lose sense of time. I always wanted to avoid it, but I've spent 2 long years in politics. My first election was in 1998. So, and I'm in the City Council since 2002. I always had a chance to go for national politics, but I love local politics. And this is why I want to talk about what we do in the European Committee of the Regions. I see my members here, so I'm not telling them what they are doing, but maybe we have more people online and present who don't know as much of the Committee of the Regions. So we are in this Brussels sphere. We say we are the voice of cities and regions in Europe. What is, okay, who are the members of the Committee of the Regions? We have all the horizons of local leaders from all across Europe. We have local councillors, mayors from small towns, from middle-sized cities, metropolitan areas. We have presidents of regions. We have representative from small islands, big islands. We have the rural, we have industrial, we have the mountain areas. We have all the different realities and all the different thinking frameworks, because every member state thinks very differently about decentralization and centralization, how we organize things. We have regions and presidents of regions who manage all, from healthcare to education to economy, agriculture, infrastructure, managing EU funds. It's very different all across. I usually say that there is a power paradox, because the Committee of the Regions is a European body, is a consultatory body, which means that we digest European legislation before it's born. So we are in connection with the European Commission, we're in connection with the European Parliament. We see what's coming. And because in the end, we have to implement most of it, we try to make it better. And also bring to the European sphere our pains, sufferings, and opportunities that we have to make the whole thing better. But why I call it a power paradox? Because if I look at the influence as an institution today and the potential, there's a huge gap. Where is the potential? In the Committee of the Regions, altogether, the alternate members and full members, we have more than 700 local elected politicians. Everybody is elected in their own city, region, town, do their daily job. And many of them have influence, direct influence of the life of millions of people. If I look at the mayor of Roma or the president of Andalusia, mayor of Barcelona, presidents of Polish regions, Italian regions, Austrian regions, their decisions affect the lives of millions of Europeans. And also what we see that in this Committee of the Regions, in a 5 years term, we meet more than 800 local elected politicians. Some of them are potential presidents of their country, future prime ministers, members of the European Commission, members of the European Parliament. The influence that they have on European politics is very important. When I look at the role of Committee of the Regions in this European sphere, it's not just about the paperwork we do. That is a very important part of our job, that we digest the European legislation, try to make it better, try to add in our best practices and our realities. But what we do, we practice democracy in a very different and very European way in the Committee of the Regions. Although we sit in political groups there, but we are not importing party politics there. We try to find what is in common. It is a place where, independently of political parties, we find the things that connect each other. We practice democracy in a very traditional way. It is not about filming TikTok videos and Insta videos. It's not about polarization. We try to bring something else into European politics. It's a place where politicians practice that sort of listening, where you actually think that the other also has their truth. Because I have my truth from Budapest, you have your truth from Dublin and Cork and Barcelona and Warsaw. They're very different truths. And to find common ground, we both have to give up something from our truths. And this is what we practice here. And I really believe that this practice, what we do in the European Committee of the Regions, translating our different realities, translating our different truths, has a multiplying effect on European democracy in the long run. We were talking today about what is the role of the local level, because it's a constant discussion. I understand here also in Ireland, there's a constant discussion between centralization and decentralization. And I'm not going to tell you how to organize your things in Ireland. But coming from Hungary, what I learned, that local investing in local democracies, in the local level, in local power, is an investing in democracy as a whole. Because the local democracies, local politicians, are very important reserves of democracy. And we all see the threats that is challenging democracy in Europe, in our own countries. And we all know that we are what we practice. Democracy is very hard. If you don't practice it, you lose it. And why do I say, why is the challenge? Where is the challenge coming from? The challenge is coming from the constant state of emergency that we are facing. Local level, national level, European level. We are living in a time, our past 6 years, that was my reality as Budapest deputy mayor, that we became constant crisis managers. What happens when you're a constant crisis manager? Your attention is getting very focused on today. And from where do you divert your attention? From the problems of tomorrow, because you that day have to solve the problem of the flood, of the energy crisis, of the pandemic, if there's a war in your border. And of course, when this happens, there is a flow of centralization, because you have to act now and you have to divert all of your resources. But if you divert your resources to one thing, it's like in your body. If you're constantly just building the muscles of your arms, you will lose the muscles everywhere. You constantly have to invest everywhere. And this is a challenge that we're seeing, that it's a constant state of an emergency that's happening, a constant urgency of acting now, diverting funds from other places, diverting energy, diverting attention from other places to the current crisis. And usually the price is losing decentralization, losing democracy, because you want to keep control of the things, and using up future resources and investments of the future for managing today. We really see that in climate adaptation mitigation. It shouldn't be a conflict. We always say that we have to reduce CO2 for the future, use less energy, produce more green energy. It's a lot of investment. But at the same time, because climate change is our reality, also here, with the constant floods, with the constant droughts, with the constant having them both at the same time, like coming from the Netherlands, they've been dealing with water for all of their existence, having too much water and fighting water. And now at the same time, they're having the rising sea levels, having too much rainwater, and also at the same time, they were facing times of droughts, not having enough water. It's the same for Budapest, okay. So you have to invest in water, you have to invest now in the wildfires, in keeping the water in your city, the long drought periods, desalination, okay, it all needs a lot of energy, it all needs a lot of resources, a lot of money, but you never have enough money. That is our reality. So you have to decide. I always say that we always talk about the best solutions, but what we learned that you have to be quite rich to have the best solutions, not to give up something somewhere else, the future, not to use our future resources to manage today's challenges. And this is a constant struggle between tomorrow and today. Just if I have some time, how much time do I have? Just tell me. Today's, one of the things we were talking today and yesterday here, why I came to Dublin to talk to the politicians, it's about the future of Europe, how we organize our things and how we divert our resources. Because the new budget proposal, the new 7-year budget, this is how we organize our things in Europe. We have 7 years budget periods, and the new proposal has been presented by the European Commission. And this proposal changes the way Europe will work if it stays like this. And I'm here to push back on this proposal, because I have my truth and the European Commission has their truth. The source of the problem is always the same. You never have enough resources. You always have more problems than you have resources. We live in this dichotomy that either you become more competitive or you die. Even if you don't act quickly, you die. If you don't address climate change, you die. If you don't do something with population, demography, migration, you die. You have this constant threats of Europe dying. This is what we're living in. You do something now or you see the end. It's clear you need more resources, but there are not any more resources. This is what we see from the local level. If I look at the city level, the national level, the European level, because of this problem, everybody's looking at a level where they see a bigger pot of money. How big is the European budget? We think it's something big, but the European budget is not big at all. The European budget is not the sum of the budget of the member states. It is only 1% of the European GDP. If I look at the core policies, the most important policies that keep the European Union together, the cohesion policy, which glues all the regions together, connecting the regions, economies, people. And if I add the agricultural policy, which is also important for Ireland, these two policies together, the 7-year budget that we spend for all the 27 member states to connect all the regions, to keep the common market work, it is less, the 7-year budget, than 1 year GDP of one region in Germany. Bavaria's yearly GDP is higher than the 7-year budget that keeps the whole stuff together. So it's not a big budget. But the problems are many. And today, what is happening, because there is no new money, that the proposal is to take out money from the inside of the European Union that keeps the Union together, that glues it together. It's called cohesion policy, that invests in all cities and regions, helping them in the transition, in the digital transition, climate transition, industrial transition, demographic transition, taking out money from cohesion policy to put it into competitiveness. And competitiveness has its truth, so that's all true. But it's also true, if you take out money from cohesion policy, you maybe will have more gigafactories, but the European Union maybe won't stay together. So this is the time, this is the challenge and tension that I'm here for, and this is why I'm looking for allies to protect the future Europe and not just think about today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam President. You have really eloquently outlined the difficulties and the challenges that we are facing, and in particular, budgets. Of course, you came on a day where we had
I know, budget day.
and the need for more money has been outlined loudly and clearly. In speaking of the cohesion funds, I think you explained, and we had a discussion beforehand, the big changes that are taking place. I think for those of us who have not understood what the significant impact of that, perhaps you could explain moving from the ring-fence cohesion funds now into what you had described as a bag of money, and the implications that will have for all of the countries where they will be, as you said, handed a bag of money to cover a range of very significant areas of expenditure.
There's a constant discussion, and it's happening everywhere, okay. And it's part of the subsidiarity discussion, okay? What we should do together, like on the European level, and what should be managed by the member states, the national level, what should be, and within the states, there's this constant discussion on what is regional competence, what is national, but it's the same for the European level, okay? So there's always a wave of centralization because of the money, because everybody's looking for resources for their own problems, which they don't find at home. But because there's no money, which means that if you have a new priority on the European level, then you have to give back some stuff to the national level. The budget proposal still is a proposal, okay? It's open for discussion. Says that what should stay on the European level, managed by the European Commission, is the new challenges. And mainly competitiveness. So investing together, because this is what we invest in together. And I'm not talking about the regulation, because that's a different thing, regulation. This is just the money. So the proposal is that what we should spend together on, managed by the European Commission, is investing in the data centers, supercomputers, space industry, defense industry, and the global Europe, so Europe and the world. And the other part of the proposal is that the other traditional core policies of the European Union, like cohesion policy, which has many funds in it, still have. So it has the cohesion fund for the less developed regions, it has the ERDF, which goes to all of the regions, and it supports small and middle-sized companies. It has the social funds that invest in the people, it invests in schools, invests in skilling, it invests in healthcare. It has the Just Transition Fund, which helps the transition from fossil fuels to cleaner technologies. It's all gone. It's merged into one fund and put in one bag with agricultural policy, cohesion policy, agricultural policy, migration, border control, fisheries, maritime issues, all put in one bag. And it's handed back to the national governments for them to solve all the challenges, the growing challenges, because none of the problems got smaller in the past years. They all need more money. Cohesion definitely needs more money. Agriculture is always looking for more money because of biodiversity, because of climate change, because of the energy crisis, because of food security. Because when we talk about security, it will cost you. The loss of trust in the world has a price. Clearly, everything will be more expensive, because when we talk about recovering raw materials, we outsourced a lot of things that were dirty, pollutant, expensive in a social way, expensive in an environmental way. Now we are insourcing things because of safety and security. Also, when it comes to healthy food, drinkable water, raw materials, investing in data centers, they all come with a price. Environmental price, investment price, and you always take away money. So what happened is that the proposal is to have the traditional policies given back to the member state level, and cohesion policies reduced to a bag of money, that will be competing with agriculture for the funds, for less funds. I'll stop here.
Yes, that's quite a change, I think, from where things were. Is there anybody who, Heather again, and yeah, Heather, you have a question?
Thank you very much. My name is Heather Brick, a researcher here at the IIEA. I was struck very much by your introduction talking about the role of the Committee of the Regions, and I think it's attempting to make democracy more participative at an EU level. In Ireland, I think in recent years we've attempted things like citizens' assemblies. Can you think of other ways? Because I think it is an acknowledgement that often people feel the EU is not, for them, or that they don't feel that they're able to participate in decision making. Do you have ideas of how else the EU could become more participative? Thank you.
Would you like to tackle that one first?
Absolutely, because I'm in a very different opinion that it usually appears from the European level. I don't believe that the European Commission's role is to directly engage with all the citizens. We who do participation, we know the realities. We know that people have a lot on their plates. They don't want to decide on every single thing. But this is why we have this multi-level governance system. And everybody should stick to their role. And I always tell the local leaders that it is their responsibility and their role, the local councillor's role, the mayor's role, the president of region's role, the prime minister's role is to know, because they have to know, that is their duty, because they have to do good governance, that it is much better for the whole community to have a stronger European Union, to have an existing European Union, than being outside. And all of our leaders know that. So they should promote it, because if they don't defend the European framework, then it will fall apart. So it is the responsibility of the leaders. And yes, I really support the local participatory initiatives, but that's very different, because it's not about having online surveys and seeing avatars on Facebook and TikTok. Participation is when you actually really feel that what you say is interesting for the other one. Somebody's actually listening to you, yes, and changes the way they think about the things you see. And you change and they change. And something in the world changes. You want to see this. This is why we have these participatory budget initiatives. In Budapest now we are experiencing with Citizens' Assembly for Women, just for women to see the city, how they use the city, how they think about the city, what they need from a city from a women's perspective. And we do it to learn from it and actually change. It's very different. I remember when Vienna, because you have to see, as a leader, it's important. That's the most important thing you have to do. You have to have eyes everywhere. You have to see. And you have to notice things. They noticed that young girls are missing from playgrounds after the age of 10. But you have to notice that they noticed that there are no girls in the playgrounds between the age of 10 and 18. And they said that, let's ask them why. And they went to the girls, to the schools, and they asked them, why aren't you using the playgrounds? Where are you? And they were telling what they're missing, what they would need, what they would use. And then they changed the playgrounds. But you can do this locally. I think it's very important to have this practice, because we were talking about this yesterday. The whole participatory process, even though sometimes it's very energy consuming and sometimes you feel that it's the same citizens and it's the very loud citizens, not the silent majority. A leader always has to see the silent majority too. But it's a practice also for the leaders, because democracy is changing. There's this constant state of emergency, which pushes you to centralize things, to work in this, I need to work fast and react fast, and I don't have time for debates. You have to counteract that. So all the participatory practice is about this. So leaders always know that even though you have these emergencies, you want more people on board when making decisions and not less. So this is a constant practice that all leaders should be involved in, and it's about the process. But I think that this is the role of those leaders who people actually see and believe that their voice is not just heard, but something changes when they say something, that their realities are perceived.
Thank you. What you mean is engaging people locally in a highly visible way.
But you have to understand that not all citizens want to engage. No, I'm a mother, and I go to these parents' meetings. And you would suppose that parents would want to be involved in the decisions about their children. But what is the reality? That most parents have too many problems on their plate. Huh?
Yeah.
This is why we organize our things. We don't want to decide every single details. But there will always be members of the society who will organize it for others. Mm-hmm. And it's important that these are like as close as possible to those people whose lives are organized. Because it's very different realities and very different voices. But of course, it's not everybody wants to participate. But it's important to have the possibility to do that and always have a control mechanism. It is about the control. You always have to keep power in check, always. Always have to hold the people you elect responsible for the things they promise and say and do. It's a constant practice. And in these times, it's more and more important to invest energy in the process, to always have in mind that it's better for everyone if more people decide than less. But it takes energy from other places. So it's not so easy.
And come in. Thank you. I have a question. Perhaps you could identify yourself when you stand up. If you stand up, it's easier.
I'm a member of the Committee of the Regions. I think the size of the bag of money is important, but so too is how we spend it. And in most other European countries, a lot of that money is spent through the local and regional structures, which of course in Ireland we pretend we have, but we don't. And that's the reality. We pretend we have regional assemblies that have power, and we pretend we have local government that has power. And this question, I suppose, in a way is to the Institute rather than to the President, because the Institute, along with European Movement Ireland, are the two biggest champions of the European Union ideal in this country to a certain extent. And the Irish government blatantly disregards one of the key principles of the European Union, that is subsidiarity. I just wonder, does the European movement of which I'm a member, or the Institute, I actually don't know how you become a member of the Institute, but do either of those two bodies ever sort of champion that key principle of the European Union that the Irish government blithely ignores while pretending we have regional structures when we all know we don't? We have administrative structures that take on the work of the government. They give us reports to adopt, which we can't amend. And then they'll tell us in 10 years' time, well, you voted for that report, and on page 157, there was X issue or Y issue. So my question really is to yourselves, and you don't even need to answer it tonight, but I think the European institutions who champion the European Union should maybe sometimes champion one of those key principles, which is subsidiarity, and which doesn't happen in this country.
Thank you. Well, I think that question actually could be answered by the President, because you have a working and close relationship with the regional groupings, right down to the various levels. It's a very organized system. We have our 9 members, 9 alternates who are democratically elected, I know, but I think that is a system of subsidiarity that is working. What would your comment be? President.
I would refrain from commenting on how you organize things here in Ireland. I really believe that it's not my role to tell you how to organize your things. Really not. I never liked that, because this is not how Europe works. This is not a centralized machine. It's not a one body, one voice construction. Europe, we say that the strength is in the diversity. Diversity is our reality, and we should transform it to strength. The whole European soul, if you look for it, is in this many different ways how we solve things, in this polyphony, that we speak these different languages, have these different realities, different cultural backgrounds, different historical backgrounds. Because if I look at public administration and how you share roles and duties, it usually has some cultural, historical rooting. I don't believe that there should be someone far away telling you what you historically put together. But I think, because when we met today in the parliament with other politicians, everybody had a local background, almost everybody. So I'm just interested that why, when they go to the national level, why do they lose this local identity? And why don't, if you believe in decentralization, why do you lose this when you become member of parliament? But it's not my role to question that. That's your internal discussion.
I was, yes, Jill, and I can follow up. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mary. Jill Donahue from the IIEA. I just wanted to make a quick point differentiating ourselves from the EMI because we're not in effect an association or an institute that promotes the European Union. We're a think tank that analyses the work that is going on in the EU, and we engage in critical analysis, both constructively positive, but also pointing out flaws. And we have quite recently started working on cohesion policy, and thank you for your suggestion that we perhaps explore it a little bit more, because I think that's really our role here, is to bring voices together that are both for and against particular issues, and to try and find some common ground. And in fact, my question to you, Madam President, was just, you talked there about exchanging ideas in the forum of the Committee of the Regions at European level. And we think of cohesion policy as, I remember Jürgen Habermas had the idea of the hermeneutic circle, that it binds a society together. But we have not just the national societies, but also the European society. And you talked about being stuck in the present. Our project that we're working on with the Department of Foreign Affairs is called Future-Proofing Europe. And I wondered, in your work, to what extent does the exchange of ideas from the different regions permit you to see another future whereby you can actually engender change, and that your institution can be a powerful voice for the regions and the local communities? Thank you.
It's super important, because we are humans. All these local leaders are humans. And we are very, very focusing on survival stories. Our whole human history is about, or our mythology is about, are the survival stories, because only those can write the stories who survived. We are like super focused, because there's an ongoing transformation, it's constant change management, and people hate change. They hate it. All these concepts are super nice, but the realities are hard. So for us, seeing other leaders transforming public spaces, having less cars, more bicycles, investing in social housing, investing in integrated neighborhoods, integrating newcomers in the city, to see them manage this change and actually survive. How do you measure survival in politics? That they get re-elected, number one. Number two, that after the change is there, people don't want to go back to the original one. This is how we measure success. And these stories are very important, because we have real innovators. And we really need innovators, because this is not a scientific project that there's only one way to do it. You have to manage, you have to have the people with you and manage the change. And it's not the same everywhere. We have this very important experiment. It's an experiment. It's the 100 climate neutral city mission. It's more than 100 cities now. They voluntarily pledged themselves to somehow become, or at least imagine how to become climate neutral by 2030. And it seems a mission impossible. It does, because you have to change so many things and you have invested a lot of money, but it's not just the money. Because if you want to become climate neutral, it means that every one of your citizens, your businesses, somehow have to contribute to this. It seems impossible. But actually, we have cities who do it. And this gives hopes to everybody else. It's a little bit like watching the Olympic Games. You see people doing things that are not imaginable. But then we see it and we say, okay, we will try it in our own way. It's not about implementing something I see in Vienna one-on-one. It's impossible. But you see that he could do it, she could do it, I can do it. I will try and find my own way, because this is what I always say. We know where we want to go. This is the role of the European level, to have these clear goals where we want to get. But the path, it's not the same for everyone. And the role of the local leaders, national leaders, regional leaders, city leaders, is to cut a path that works for their communities. And you know, if you don't have the local leaders, because there are many. So when it comes to competitiveness, there's a joke. Sorry, from behind the Iron Curtain, from the Soviet times. There was a joke. The Central Commission of the Communist Party had a debate. Should there be money in the future or not? And one part of the Central Committee was arguing that yes, money has to stay, it's important for stability. The other part of the Central Commission said that no. Money is the symbol of the bourgeoisie, it is the tool of oppression, money has to go. So they asked the chair of the Central Committee, how should it be, comrade? And he said, you both have troops. There will be money and there will not be money. Genius. But please, comrade, explain, how can we imagine this in practicality? It's very simple. Some will have money, others won't. This is what we want to avoid. When it comes to competitiveness, some will have competitiveness, others won't have competitiveness. Some will have growing population and thriving cities, and other regions will be hollowed out. And that doesn't work. But this is not the Europe I'm imagining. Yeah. So I'll stop here. Yeah.
In an Central and Eastern European country, I served, they had a joke from the pre-communist times, because people did not always receive money for salaries. And it was that the business...
I know the joke.
We pretended to work and they pretended to pay us.
Exactly. Exactly.
But to follow on that, Madam President, competitiveness, and some regions going forward will do very well and some will do poorly. And the economic repercussions you have outlined, and they are significant. What are the political repercussions? You have an overall view over the whole of Europe because your representatives come from the whole of Europe. I mean, what do people from the underdeveloped regions, do they feel closer or further from the EU in which they are a part?
There are no general comments on this. It's very different. Even my bloc, Central Eastern Europe, a very diverse situation. we had our competition there, really, like those who joined together the EU. And we've been visiting each other in the Soviet times, and we are visiting each other now. And if you want to, I mean, you know how cohesion policy works, so I don't have to show you because you've seen the transformation. But if you visit my region, you really can see the transformation. I have just visited this year at least 4 different Polish cities. What is today and what was 20 years ago, completely different. I was going to Constanța, Romania, a few weeks ago. They've been sprinting. I went to Varna in Bulgaria. They are using cohesion funds amazingly, like you did. Not the same everywhere. Some face challenges, but of course, what I see, and it's a pragmatic way of looking at it. But where you have strong regional level, because it's very different, because I have in Hungary 3,000 local municipalities, but no real regions. And that's a problem, because we have a lot of small municipalities, 3,200, directly elected mayors, and they have power, but their projects should be bundled up, because then they could use much better all the resources to build together things, organize together things. What I see that where you have strong regions that can bundle up projects, but also the local level has power. Because what does it mean, power? It's not just you have budget, you have decision-making responsibilities, but when you have that, you can bring in new money and energy from the local community, because then local business will talk to you. Then your citizens will turn to you. They will invest their energy. The local business will invest. And this way, when you have this stronger local level, when you have the regional level, you can bring in more energy, more leadership, and more money into the transformation. And that really helps. We see that with cohesion funds, with ERDF, with Just Transition, with the Interreg programs. It helps if you have strong local authorities.
Yes, you can see that. I mean, without the regional level, it's a very disparate collection of areas. Yes, sorry, Barry? Yeah, we come to the last few questions.
Thanks very much, Mary. Barry Cull from the Director of Research here. It's a real honour to host you and your team here. I do have a question, but Jill beat me to the punch just to comment on Councillor Lacey's remark about subsidiarity. I really welcome it. This is the principle that decisions should be made as close to the citizenry as possible, and it's a really important principle, and it's indeed lies at the heart of Articles 2 and 3 of the European Treaty. But just to echo what Jill said, well, it's not our place to champion anything of that sort. It's certainly our privilege to host these sorts of discussions and to have public representatives and citizens talking about these really important topics. So hopefully we can have more of it, Councillor. I'm happy to discuss it with you. I want to push you on a very small thing, Madam President. I totally understand indeed, I think you're correct to not be seen to be telling anyone how to do anything in terms of how local government happens here. But you have a really important advantage that you deal with people from the Arctic to the Med, the East to the West. Very few people have that sort of perspective. I think you've had a really cool, a really great program that has been organised by your team and by your hosts here. And I just wonder, is there anything you can tell us in terms of things that are similar or different, or like key takeaways you have, rather than things that have been done well or done badly about local government here? I'd be really interested to know if you have anything to take away with you from your trip. And thanks again.
That's a tough one, because I still stick to my principle that I am not giving advices. I really believe in this. You have to organize your way. Coming from Hungary, I always tell everyone that it's very similar with democracy and freedom. You cannot import these things. You cannot put the pressure on another country to have this. This is your internal struggle. This is what you do. It is the forever struggle between order and chaos. And freedom lives in a very narrow corridor in between the two. You can only be free if there's some order. But if there's too much order, pathological order, you're not free. You struggle in between. And the role of civil society, the citizens, is always to keep power in check and always push. But that is your struggle. Nobody can impose it on you. It won't work. So I'm not giving advices because it's really also historical and cultural, how you form this way of governing your things. It is wrong to have this battle. You have to do it. I see a lot of, there's a lot of amazing things here in Dublin. And yesterday we talked about it. I arrived here not rereading, but revisiting James Joyce's Ulysses. And I reread the last chapter. But what was the most important thought that stayed with me, that to understand the universal, you have to deep dive in the local. And there was this thought from Joyce that if I can get to the heart of Dublin, I can get to the heart of all the cities in the world. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to visit the Bluebell project, the Bluebell housing project in Dublin. And it's never, ever the big gigafactories and big, I don't know, railroads and metro investments that touches your heart. These are these small human-centered projects, because this is why you do politics, because you want to have less pain and suffering in the world. And if you can change the lives of a few people, then you've done something good. And this is why we are here. It's not about the big infrastructure. It is about having less suffering. And so that really touched my heart.
Yeah, as you say, it's up to us. I have, if you will allow, Madam President, one more question over there, if you could.
Very much. Just to say that your speech was very inspirational. I'm a member of the ILG, the Association of Irish Local Government. I'm also a member of the Committee of the Regions. And we certainly in the ILG have realised the situation local government is in this country in relation to subsidiarity. But we have a current government task force which dealing with this situation, and we also have received submissions from the IIEA office and from the regional assemblies, which is very valuable and will give us an important insight into how they see the process working. So it's important to recognise that there is work there for our department to realise what we're at, and also from a European perspective that we're well aware that there is a greater need for connectivity. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you reiterate that, because my laptop was not working and I handed it. So could you just go over again the last bit of your last remark? Thank you.
I just said that I'm a member of the ILG, which is the Association of Irish Local Government.
Yeah. And
we certainly have recognised as a councillors body the need for a recognition that there's a huge challenge in relation to centralisation in this country and the need for subsidiarity. So we certainly work on, there is a government task force set up which we are participating in along a number of bodies, and the IREO office through Theresa Lennon and the Regions Office to Claire Bannon have submitted to that particular body. We had to request that they be included to make submissions. It wasn't in the original terms of reference. So that has been granted, and that will be considered as part of the report when we finalise it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very useful to know and to be aware of. Thank you. I think unfortunately we've reached the end of our discussion time. I think we could go on. There are a number of other areas, but I think we can wish you well. I mean, one of the areas that we will be watching, I suppose, is the support you get for the difficulties you have raised regarding the Cohesion Fund. And that as I know you are traveling around the member states, you were in Denmark, you were in the Netherlands, and indeed in New York, and to point out the difficulties that this new budget proposal will cause. The European Parliament will, I presume, be very influential in their discussions. But basically, I want to thank you for coming and sharing hugely useful views with us. We have learned a lot from just the discussion here today. So thank you again for being here. Thanks to your team for the organization. And we wish you well in the continued promotion of people's democracy from the grassroots up. And we pay tribute to your efforts in that regard. So thank you very much indeed, President Tüttő.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for my Irish members of the Committee of the Regions and all the supporting team, because it was really an amazing 2 days. And I'm taking home many, I came with Joyce, but I'm taking home many other things, Joyce in reality. So I think I found the heart. Thank you very much.
That's good.
Thank you.